like to thank Bert George for providing wine for our reception today. It was a lot of fun to be out there pouring with Matt Bell and Clarence Stone, getting to talk to people as you came in. And if you noticed, we're getting a little something replaced on our building. The rotary wheel on this building is being replaced, I think possibly as we speak. So, of course, they picked like the 2-day stretch when it's raining to do this. At this time, let's call up our red badgers with the traveling microphones. And on that note, I'd like to point out at each table, there is a spot reserved for a red badger. So if you have a red badge, seek out that spot at a table so you can get to know some of our blue badge Rotarians. Okay, let me start over on my left. Keyston.
All right, Keyston Smith, President and CEO of Silker Management Company.
Great to have you. And I know we've got a fill in for our second. Where is? Oh.
Hi, President Sal.
Hi, Lauren.
My name is Lauren Edwards. This is my second Wednesday meeting as a Red Badger, so I'm super excited to be here. And I am a local attorney. I do family law, estate planning, and mediation.
Excellent. I'm going to look into your work once I win the lotto tonight.
Fantastic.
All right, visiting Rotarians and Rotarians with guests, please stand so we can get you introduced. Why don't we start right over here with Bonnie.
Good afternoon. I have 3 guests today. I want to introduce you to Rosanna McDonald, who is the Development Director for Center for Employment Training here in San Jose, and Darlene Tennis, who you've already seen as one of our speakers, and I want to give her just a second after I introduce my ever faithful and wonderful husband, Marv, a Campbell Rotarian.
Oh, if any of you want to learn to make tamales, I did the program about farm workers a couple months ago. So we're doing a big tamalada where we're going to make tamales and then we're going to take them to the farm workers. So I gave a couple of you flyers and I have a couple of flyers left. So if you want that, come get a flyer.
Awesome. Love tamales. Okay. And over here.
Good afternoon, President Sal.
Good afternoon, Celeste.
My guest today is Deb Kramer, the Executive Director of Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful.
Welcome, Deb.
Mr. President,
Mr. Deva.
I have a guest today. Her name is Sherry Tadov, and she is the president of Strata Consulting, a transportation consulting company.
Wonderful. It was nice to talk to you earlier. Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. I have 2 guests today. Both are on their second visit to Rotary. First, I'd like to introduce Chad Peavy. Chad's an author and executive coach and was a community service leader in Austin before moving here.
Fantastic. Welcome, Chad.
Yeah. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Jay Corbett. Jay is an engineer with Google and a downtown resident and interested in things to support the downtown community.
We have many of those. Welcome back, Jay. What a lovely hat.
It's my fascinator. I am a vision in black.
Okay.
Good afternoon, President Sal. Elizabeth Monley, and I'd like to introduce my husband, Dave Monley, who has joined us on many different fun occasions, and my dear friend, Will Marshman, who comes with Barbara Marshman.
Dave, Will, good to see you both.
Hey, President Sal, Gay Crawford, Media Consulting. I am really happy to introduce Thomas Russell. He is the Executive Director of the Downtown YMCA over here on the Alameda.
Great to have you here. Welcome. Hello, Sylvia.
Hello, President Sal. Hi.
Hi.
I am so happy to introduce my friend Shara Hegde, who is the CEO of Alpha Public Schools, a network of charter schools serving our students in Eastside San Jose.
Welcome. Hello, Pam.
Good afternoon, President Sal. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had wine today.
Yes, and so we're all doing a little bit better. Thank you so much. I'm happy to introduce my husband, Mike, who wanted to hear the speaker on the Webb telescope. Mike is the chairman of the Foley Mortgage Company.
Fantastic. Welcome, Mike, as always.
Mr. President, I get a twofer today. I apologize to the boss too. I neglected to introduce my wife, Gloria Duffy, president of the Commonwealth Club, who's a guest today.
Dr. Duffy, always great to have you here.
Hey,
Burrows.
President Sal.
Hey, Josh.
Josh Burrows, Real Estate Development, Urban Catalyst. My guest today is my better half, my wife, Antonia.
Wonderful to have you here, Antonia. Okay.
Hello, President
John.
Sal. John Valenti here, commercial lender at Heritage Bank. Wanted to introduce my coworker here, Kimberly Esparza. She's a recent graduate from San Jose State and a credit analyst over at Heritage Bank.
Great. Wonderful to have you here.
Hello, President Sal. Dan Orloff, Marketing Local. My guest today is my girlfriend, Judy Weinstein.
Judy, great to have you.
Hi, President Sal and fellow Rotarians. My guest today is Nick Nyson, another analyst from Heritage Bank. He recent graduate from San Jose State as well.
Great. Well, thanks for coming, Nick.
Hello, President Sal, Arthur Weisbrod.
You're
I'm
on.
very pleased to introduce my guest, Barry Shepard, a retired businessman who now is a volunteer at History San Jose. Thank you.
Oh, love volunteers, love History San Jose. Welcome.
Hola,
Zorro.
presidente Sal. Buenas tardes. Yo soy Zorro, representando los bandidos californianos. También el Comité Internacional, de la Casa Internacional. We have a guest here from the International House. His name is Andrew Dorfer, and excuse me. And he's very international. He's traveled through Latin America. He may say a few words in Spanish or Portuguese. And our International House Committee takes pride in bringing at least one member of the club, or excuse me, of the House over here to join us in Rotary. So
Hola, ¿qué tal todos? Estoy encantado a conocer a todos. If somebody wants to know something about like how quantum computers work, just hit me up because I'm a physics major. And if somebody plays the piano, I'm down for that too. All right, obrigado.
Welcome.
President Sal, Tim Hagstrom, pleased to introduce my son, Trevor, who has a passing interest in amateur astronomy.
Wonderful. Welcome, Trevor.
President Sal, I'd like to introduce JP Sahi, who is the CEO of Rotocare Bay Area.
Welcome, JP. Seeing none on this side, we will head to Carl Salas.
Wow, what a lot of guests. Great speaker coming up, huh?
Yep.
Hey, Sal, I've got a bunch of guests. First of all, Jason Kazarian is going to be a new member. He's already put his papers in. He's been here a couple of times.
Fantastic. Welcome, Jason.
And now I've got our inbound student from Spain, Javier Bustamante. He's on our Youth Exchange program.
Javier, welcome.
And his host mom, and Madeline, his host sister, who was one of our outbound some years ago.
Great. Love seeing that program continue throughout the years. Okay. Steve Prouty, why are you standing up? Okay, that's why. That's just checking. You should come up now. And as Steve's making his way with one of our new members, I would like to just quickly acknowledge all the wonderful people we have dressed in costume today. If you could quickly stand up and show off your costumes. Tim. Got Doug back there in costume. So great to keep the Halloween spirit going. Okay, Steve Prouty, come up with Josh. Love new members, yay.
President Sal is absolutely correct, especially for us members of the membership committee. We love new members. And let me introduce one of our newest members, Josh Grossworth. Josh is the development director for the Salvation Army here locally. Josh was born in Santa Barbara. When he was 5, his folks moved up to Pleasant Hill. He graduated from De La Salle, and he was there during those years that they were just dominating Northern California football. But I'm going to let Josh spend a little time talking about what happened in his life after leaving De La Salle. So with that, let me introduce Josh Grossworth.
Work on that with you, Steve.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, President Sal, for that very nice, warm introduction. Very happy to be here. So excited to be a Red Badger and to join the club and to hopefully eventually meet all of you. So thanks for the introduction again, Steve. Like he said, after De La Salle, I came back to the West Coast here. After De La Salle, I went to the East Coast, to Boston College, where I was a marketing major. Absolutely loved the East Coast, loved my time up over there. Did not love the weather so much, and knew I wanted to come back and sort of apply my marketing skills in the tech world. And so that's what I did for my first couple of roles right after college, is I worked in marketing for a couple tech companies. I did McAfee and Norton Antivirus. It was a good first couple job experiences, but wasn't getting super fulfilled, didn't love the culture, decided to mix it up a little bit. And so I actually went into the Peace Corps for a couple of years after that. And they sent me down to Costa Rica as an economic consultant, small business consultant. Absolutely loved my time there. I know there's some other Peace Corps folks in the group as well. So if you have any experience, I'd love to talk to you about it. But then after I came back after my stint there, that sort of reinvigorated my love for marketing and PR and communications, but I wanted to do it in more of a nonprofit setting where I could feel like my skills were being leveraged for the greater good. And so that's what I did. I took a role in the development team at American Lung Association for a couple years. And then after that, I had the opportunity to come over to the Salvation Army to work as a donor relations director. And I've been there for almost 4 years. I'm at the one right down the street, 2 blocks down 4th Street. So anyway, that brings me here. My interests that led me to the Salvation Army are the same ones that lead me to Rotary Club. I love giving back. I love the scope of the things that this club does. It seems like it has something for everybody. And I particularly love things that are youth related, international aid related, and homelessness. Those are kind of my big passions. And it seems like there's plenty for me to work on with you guys. So I'm so excited to be part of the club. I'm so excited to meet all you. And I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. Thanks. Yeah, we can do a quick picture.
All right, and we're going to keep on rolling and bring up another new member. I'd like to ask Dick Conniff to bring up our newest member, Robert Massey.
Well, thank you, President Sal. It's been my pleasure to host Robert at a number of meetings and a couple of barbecues. And he and Shauna from Opera San Jose were actually the program a couple of weeks ago. So he's not a stranger to any of us, but I thought I might tell you a little bit about how Robert ended up in our community from Louisville, Kentucky. Back in, I guess, middle or the fall of 2021, I was the chairman of the board of Symphony San Jose when our founding general director and much beloved Andrew Bales announced his retirement. So the board formed a search committee and set out to find his replacement. And by early 2022, we had generated about 50 applications from all over the world. And we were able to take those 50 applications and by the spring of 2022 or towards the middle of the year, reduce that down to 3 finalists who we brought to San Jose to interview and get to know a little bit better on a one-on-one basis. And they were all excellent, but Robert clearly stood out. And with his combination of artistic and managerial experience and expertise. He was clearly the person that we wanted to be the new general director for Symphony San Jose. So the stars aligned, and he joined us in the middle of this year. And it's really been a pleasure to work alongside him and learn from him as he takes the reins of our company. So please join me in welcoming our newest member, Robert Massey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really honored to join this club. I first came to Rotary back in 2008. I had moved to Iowa, and I was running the orchestra in Cedar Rapids. And shortly after I got there, the river that ran through Cedar Rapids flooded and sent 9 feet of water through downtown, destroying much of everything. And for the symphony, that meant it destroyed our office, our performance home, our instruments, our production equipment, our music. However, the community came together, and led by the Rotary in that area, we were able to get through it. It took us 4 years to rebuild, but I think everybody knew that we came out stronger as a community. And I knew that for the rest of my life, I would be involved with Rotary. After Iowa and Florida, and then as Dick said, I came here with my family, my wife and my daughter, who's a senior in high school, which isn't an easy time to move 2,300 miles to a new location. But we have been welcomed by you. We are, as I pin this now, my 3rd red badge on, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really honored to serve with you. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, now comes to the fun part of the program before we get to the program is it's time to ring the bell. So if you have good news to share and $100 to donate to our endowment, I'd like to hear about it. Who's first? Pam Foley. Do we have a microphone we can get to Pam? No, we got a microphone coming to you.
I do have one of those voices. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm really excited to make this announcement today, actually. And first, I want to start off by thanking you all for your support in my re-election efforts. As you may know, this isn't a political speech, but I ran unopposed in June, and so I was elected. Yay, me! But I want to thank you for that. But what that means is I actually raised a lot of excess funds that I'm unable to use. The city requires me to do just a couple of things with them. And what I have chosen to do is make a donation to the Rotary Club Endowment in the name of the Military Care Committee of $2,500 in honor of Veterans Day, in honor of all that we do and our commitment for our veterans and our dedication. I just wanted to make that announcement.
Well, thank you. I'm not going to do 25 rings, but I'm going to do 5. How about that? 5 $500 rings.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. Jim.
Hello, President Sal. Jim Towery, Superior Court Judge. I'm going to ask that you ring the bell 4 times. This past week, our extended family was expanded by one more, Vivian, who joins her 3 sisters, so that we now have 4 great granddaughters. 4 times, please.
Congratulations.
President Sal, I have 2 ring the bells.
Okay.
The first is for my oldest son, Ben, who some of you have met a few years ago, fighter pilot in the Navy, who was recently promoted to commander of his squadron, so he'll take command next May. And the second is to my younger son, Nate, who is wrapping up editing on John Wick 4 with Keanu Reeves.
Can't wait. Okay, any more? Carl?
If no one else is getting up, hey, I just want to talk about the success of the Youth Exchange Program. This guy, Javier, is in here from Spain. I hope he meets you later. Will you talk to him afterwards? He needs to know about the iHouse, which, by the way, is a Rotary thing, too. But also, Madeline was outbound. A number of, Pam Foley's daughter was an outbound. And this Youth Exchange Program of ours, it's just one student a year, but the ripple effect is fantastic. So I want to ring the bell 2 times just because we've got Javier here and Madeline here.
Fantastic. Okay, we are going to be quickly moving along. Arthur, you're not yet. You're in the wings, but he's waiting there. Gay.
Hi, Sal. I really wanted to ring the bell for Cancer Care Point 1. We have wonderful Alex, who has joined the board and was recognized last week or the week before. And at our garden party, we raised $1.1 million. It wasn't all mine, so just one ring, thanks.
Fantastic job. Okay, now I'd like to ask Rose Simmons to please come up quickly to get through we are running very behind, but we want to hear about what's going on with Rotacare.
Thank you, President Sal. I would like to introduce JP, who's the CEO of Bay Area Rotacare. She's going to share with you some details of the clinic.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say a special thanks to everyone who's on the Rotacare committee of this club, and thank you for all the support you give to the clinic. So I did have a quick slideshow that I'm going to go over while I speak. I'm not going to go over everything because I have a limited amount of time. So I did want to briefly talk about the history of Rotacare because I think we always forget about it. Rotacare did start here in the heart of Santa Clara County over 30 years ago in 1989 when we started our first clinic at the St. Agnes Clinic. And if you look here, here's how we initially started. This is it down in the South County. And we did have a little vehicle that went out to the farms and provided services to farm workers. And then by 1997, we had 7 clinics. And as you can see, they're most either in the peninsula or the South County. And today we're at 10 clinics in 6 different counties. And our current clinic is in San Jose, is at the Washington School site, and we're providing in-person and telehealth clinics. And our medical director is Dr. Bruce Frombach, who I think some of you have known. And the Rotacare committee provides volunteers and meals and other support as supporting the advisory council. So in 2021, Rotacare clinics, even in the pandemic, we saw over 2,000 patients, with over 10% of those patients being at the San Jose clinic. And I'm going to share a patient story because I think it's important that you know the impact of the Rotacare clinics. It's a 56-year-old female patient who had poorly controlled diabetics, and she developed neuropathy symptoms of severe burning in her feet, making it difficult for her to work. She was evaluated at the nurse and physician at the San Jose clinic, and Mrs. K started getting insulin shots. And in her own words, "With Rotacare, the one thing I did not worry about was my health care. The ability to talk to a doctor every 6 months with accommodating labs and access to discounted medication was able to have tremendous difference in my life, and because of Rotacare, I was able to cover the cost of my doctor visits and labs, and I was able to maintain a good health care outside of the insurance, not having insurance, and probably got better care than if I did have insurance. There's no way to access quality health care without having clinics like Rotacare San Jose Free Medical Clinic." So I do want to, without you and the support of this Rotary Club, we would not be able to serve the community. And thank you, everyone here in the committee and the club, for providing funding, volunteers, meals, and all the additional support you provide. Thank you.
Still in the wings. And now, very quickly, because we want to hear about the trip to Mexico City, Josh Burrows and Fernando Sassueta. We're way.
Okay, thanks, President Sal. Josh Burrows here from the International Service Committee, along with my super amigo, past Presidente Fernando. We just got back on October 2nd from Mexico City with a delegation of 14 SJ Rotarians and friends. We delivered over 240 wheelchairs in and around the Mexico City area in partnership with the Silicon Valley chapter of the Wheelchair Foundation and our host club, the Rotary Club of Mexico City. Our club has delivered thousands of wheelchairs to multiple countries around the world over the past 20 years. And this trip was especially memorable as we celebrated the formal renewal of our alliance with the Rotary Club of Mexico City, which was started by past presidents Karen Sununu Tauri, Fernando, and also International Service Committee member Sandra Jewett, who helped set that up in 2019 when we delivered 300 wheelchairs with another Rotary Club there in the city. With a need for more than 1 million wheelchairs in Mexico alone, it's our global partnerships and friendships that help deliver the gift of mobility to severely disabled people every year. And no matter where we go or whatever the language, we find that a simple smile really is the thing that transcends all barriers.
That's correct. And thank you to Tim Gill and his International Services Committee for helping organize all of this. We hope that what started as an alliance with the, in 2019 with the Rotary Club of Jalostoc, in a suburb of Mexico City, 3 million in that suburb of Mexico City. We hope that with this new alliance that we formed with the Rotary Club of Mexico City, which is the first and oldest club in that nation that has a similar heritage as ours. They celebrated 100 years in 2021. So we celebrated along with us. They gave us these books that they've printed out, and they gave us these as a commemoration of our visit with them. They met us at the airport with a large bus and a driver that drove us all around, and they paid for everything. And they met us at the airport. They had these special vests that you see, and it was not to be a tour guide, but because it was to help identify us in crowds as we went around in our travels. So that was in collaboration with the Mexico City Club members who assembled the wheelchairs, and they identified the disabled recipients and brought them to the drop-off points that we met them at, and including there was a special trip to Temuaya, which is it was 8,000 feet up in the mountains above Mexico City. It was a cultural center of this tribe of Otomi. The Otomi are proud to have never been defeated by the Aztecs, and they helped Cortez defeat them because of the cruelty that they thought that the Aztecs were responsible for a lot of the problems there. So they greeted us with a wonderful reception, food, and indigenous entertainment, complete with TV coverage, by the way. They are proud to say. We also had
that I have to give you the book.
Well, you're going to miss out on all of this stuff here because I was going to tell you about this, and I'm not going to give it up yet. What you see here is a maquette of a 10-foot high sculpture that will go on the Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. It hasn't been established the exact location yet, but there are only 2 of these maquettes in the world. One is in Evanston, Illinois, seat of our Rotary International. The other one is in San Jose, California. So the rest of this thing we can talk about later, but there you go.
Thank you. Okay. Doug, you're going to stand there, and I'm going to tell people Magic Whiskey Party Bus. November 19th, we need people to go. $120, beautiful Highland dress. You can see we're going to have it on the bulletin. There we go. And now I'd like to bring up Arthur Weisbrot to please introduce our speaker who's joining us on Zoom today.
Well, I'm very honored to introduce Rotary's favorite astronomer, Andrew Fraknoi. Professor Fraknoi retired from full-time teaching at Foothill College in 2017, and now teaches short courses on astronomy and physics at the University of San Francisco and at San Francisco State University. He's the lead author of the most frequently used introductory astronomy textbook in the country, Astronomy. Fraknoi regularly appears on regional and national radio programs explaining astronomy in everyday language. In retirement, he's also writing astronomically reasonable science fiction stories, with 7 published so far. The International Astronomical Union has named asteroid 4859 asteroid Fraknoi to recognize his contributions to the public understanding of science. See fraknoi.com for more information about his work or his fiction. Now, I am a certified Fraknoi groupie. I audited 3 of his classes at Foothill College, Astronomy 1, Astronomy 2, and Physics for Poets. He is a superb teacher. Andrew Fraknoi.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And Arthur was one of my favorite students, as you can imagine. So I'm delighted to be back with you. I apologize that I can't be there in person because of a family medical issue that I have to be here for, but I'm delighted to talk to you about today's topic, which is our brand new space telescope. So if we could have the first slide. It really is a giant eye in the invisible sky. It was launched on December 25th, 2021, after years of delays, but now it's operating flawlessly 1 million miles from Earth. To understand what it's doing, I need to go back to the year 1800. Let's have the next slide, please. In 1800, William Herschel, a musician and amateur astronomer, discovered that the sun gave off not just light, but invisible colors of light. He actually put thermometers into the different colors of light as they were dispersed by a prism, and found that there was temperature, there was heat, even when there was no light to be seen beyond the red edge of the spectrum. And that showed him that the sun was putting out rays that were invisible to our eyes, but carried energy to Earth. We now call those heat rays or infrared rays. They tell us about things in the universe that our eyes simply cannot see. And that's the rays that the James Webb Space Telescope is designed to see. The next slide shows you the vast range of invisible waves we've discovered since 1800. Many of you may know X-rays from the dentist's office and ultraviolet waves, radio and television waves, but we're going to focus particularly on the infrared, beyond the red waves that tell us about things that are cooler than stars in outer space. The next slide shows you the difference between the James Webb Space Telescope mirror and the most famous telescope until now, the Hubble mirror, and then a person to give you a sense of scale. The Hubble was limited by the size of the space shuttle that launched it, but the James Webb Telescope mirrors unfolded in space, so they can be much larger. They're actually coated with gold, because gold is an excellent reflector of infrared light. There was a 3-part folding of the mirror, and then it unfolded in space. And that has to be constantly aligned. Those different segments have to be constantly aligned to within 1,000th the width of a human hair. To detect the light and make the images properly, we need them to be focused within that limitation, 1,000th the width of a single human hair. And amazingly, it works. Everything has been working together just perfectly. The bigger the mirror, the more detail we can make out. The whole telescope is quite large. Next slide, please. First of all, I should say it's operating about 1 million miles from Earth at a stable gravity point, as determined by the gravities of the sun, the Earth, and the moon. And it is able to operate in the darkness and cold of space. The next slide shows you a kind of cartoon of the size of the telescope. The telescope installation is as tall as a 3-story building, and the heat shield that keeps the sun's rays from warming up the telescope is the size of a tennis court. So it's really quite a sizable operation. The next slide shows you the overview. There is a main mirror. The infrared energy falls on that main mirror. It's reflected to a second mirror, then down this tube to the scientific instruments behind it. There's a spacecraft that directs everything, an antenna sending information back to Earth. But the most important thing here is that the Earth and the sun are a source of heat. And since we're looking for incredibly faint heat rays from deep space, we cannot allow the sun or the Earth to heat up the telescope. And that's what this multi-part sunshade does. It keeps the heat of the sun away from the telescope. And this allows the telescope to operate at a temperature of minus 370 degrees Fahrenheit. Bring your parka if you visit. Setting all this up had 344 single points of failure, NASA said, and everything worked flawlessly. What we're seeing, next slide, please. What we're seeing is a range of colors or channels of infrared, all kind of beyond the colors that the human eye sees. You know that the light that we see with our eyes can be divided into a rainbow of colors. If you had infrared eyes, you would see a rainbow of infrared colors. Our eyes can't see them, but the instruments aboard James Webb can, and they show us, therefore, an infrared universe. Now, the next slide shows you a rough idea of what the differences might be. Here is a nerdy astronomer at NASA holding a garbage bag, just for the purposes of this demonstration. The left side shows you that nerdy astronomer in visible light. The right shows you the same picture in infrared light. And you can immediately see the difference. Whereas the garbage bag is completely obscuring his hands in visible light, the garbage bag is essentially invisible in infrared, and we can see the glow of the heat from his hands quite clearly in the second picture. Also, since this is recording heat, the most intense thing in this picture is his face, where you can see the body heat coming out. The clothing obscures the warm skin beneath, and so we see his clothing as much cooler and darker in the picture. But you get the idea that we see a different set of things with visible light on the left and infrared or heat rays on the right. And it's those heat rays we're observing with the James Webb Space Telescope. All right, the next slide. We want to talk a little bit about how the universe is organized, and then I'll share with you some of the remarkable images we've already received. Next slide shows you the rough idea. We, the Earth, are one planet among 8 other planets that make up the solar system, which is really the sun system. And the sun is our star. Every star is a sun, and our sun is one star. If you were there at the distance of the stars, each of them would be a giant glowing globe like the sun. The reason we see the stars as points of light is because they're so far away. So, as you know from looking at the night sky, we live in a neighborhood with lots of stars. We call our neighborhood, our city of stars, the Milky Way galaxy. And we now know that stars are all organized into these giant islands of stars called galaxies. Our telescopes have revealed a universe with billions upon billions of galaxies made up of billions of stars as far as our telescopes can see. So what we've been able to see with current infrared telescopes are nearer systems, brighter systems. What the James Webb Telescope can show us is the remote parts of the universe, are systems, galaxies of stars much further away than telescopes we've had so far can show us. Now, we know, next slide, please. We know that the information that comes to us from space travels via light or infrared light, and that travels at 186,000 miles per second, and more common units, 670 million miles per hour. That's as fast as anything can go, but it still takes a while. Light has a speed, and it takes a while to get somewhere, especially the distances in space. The next slide shows you the unit we use for distances. We define distances in astronomy in light years, a light year being the distance that light travels in a year. So if light travels 186,000 miles every second, we have to multiply by the number of seconds in a year. And what we then get is that a light year, the distance that light travels in a year, is 6,000 billion miles. That's a big number. 6 trillion miles, 6,000 billion miles. That's one light year. Now, how far away is the nearest star? The next slide shows you the nearest star is 4 of those light years away. So it would be a 4-year trip for light to get from this star, Alpha Centauri, to the sun. 4 light years means light takes 4 years to get here. What that means is we're seeing 4-year-old news from Alpha Centauri. We cannot get any news earlier than that because it takes 4 years for the light to get here. And that means we have only old news. CNN would not be satisfied with this. They want instant news, but we astronomers are very happy to get the news when it reaches us. The next slide shows you one of the most famous stars in the sky, Betelgeuse, in the shoulder of the constellation of Orion. And that big red star is about 600 light years away. That means the light we see tonight left that star 600 years ago. Now, the next slide shows you the closest major galaxy of stars to the Milky Way. It is 2.5 million light years away, which means the light we see tonight left there 2.5 million years ago. That seems like very old light, but not that much changes in these galaxies. So that's still pretty good current information. But what I'm trying to show you with all this, and the point I want you to take away from today's discussion, is in the next slide. The further out we look, the longer ago we are seeing. The more distant the object, the longer the light takes to get here, and the older the news we're receiving. And that's great for astronomers, because astronomers see as their main task reconstructing the history of the universe. How can we learn about things that happened billions of years ago in the universe? By looking at light coming to us from those distant objects. We're looking at the oldest news we can see, and that allows us to fill in the story of the early days of the universe. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the James Webb Space Telescope is designed to do, to look far out and long, long ago. Next slide. This is the first image that was released. It was released at the White House. It's what we call a deep image. And everything you see in this image that doesn't have a spike is a galaxy of billions of stars. Look at all the galaxies. Roughly speaking, the fainter the object, the further it is, and the longer ago we are seeing it. In this picture, if you look carefully, there are little dots, little red dots that are probably 12 or 13 billion light years away, and we're seeing them as they were 12 or 13 billion years ago. This is the first time we've had the capability of seeing galaxies this far out with infrared light. The next slide Now I want to show you some of the specific, most beautiful images. And I want to remind you that a lot of what astronomers do is to look at stars, and we've learned that they, like people, are born at a particular moment, live out their lives, and then die. In my classes, I divide the stages of a star's life into these categories based on what humans are like. And we're particularly interested in learning more about the prenatal stage of star birth. What happens before a star is born? And we've actually found stellar wombs, stellar nurseries that give birth to stars, but they're so obscured by the smog of space, by gas and dust, that visible light doesn't show us a lot of detail. The next slide shows us regular stars. These are adult stars, and the Hubble can show us those really well. Big telescopes on Earth can show us those really well. Next slide. But when we look at regions of star birth, it's often much more difficult. On the left, you see the constellation of Orion as a visible light telescope shows it to you. And then we see that exact same part of the sky with infrared light. Look at what was invisible on the visible picture. The reddish material is gas and dust. It's the raw material out of the universe, out of which new stars, new planets, and maybe perhaps even new Rotary Club members are constructed all the time in the depths of space. Invisible on the left, but clearly visible with infrared. Next slide shows you one region which is full of gas and dust, and you can really see the colorful glowing gas here, and then the lanes of dust. Can you see the lanes of dust within the gas? This is very similar to the dust you find under your bureau when you haven't cleaned up for a while. And it is in such nurseries that we really learn about how stars form from this raw material. Next slide shows you a small part of this, a group, a young cluster of stars off to the top right. And we'll focus in on this part. Next slide. Here you see the original object I showed you. Here you see the part I focus in on over here. And right here, there's kind of a region where the dust and gas are clearly visible, even with the Hubble. Now let's look at the next slide. Here's the Hubble image close up, and you can begin to see the region where new stars are born. And you can begin to see that there's a bit of light here and there, stars forming from this great wall of dust and raw material. Now let's see that same picture with the James Webb Telescope. Look at how much more we can see. Look at how detailed the mountains of dust become as we see them with infrared light. Look at how beautifully we see new stars shining out, peeking out from the nursery that gave birth to them. None of this was visible on the Hubble image. So much more can be seen here. Yes, and thank you for making them bigger. That's far more interesting than my face. Just the amazing detail that you can see here. New stars that were born recently, some stars that are just turning on, an incredible complexity in this wall of raw material. Next slide shows you another picture we took of a region where a beautiful cluster has turned on already, a cluster of stars. And then there's a great emptiness where raw material got compressed to make this cluster of stars. Again, you see lots and lots of raw material surrounding this newborn cluster of stars. We see the formation of stars, the process of star birth in action. This is sometimes called the Tarantula Nebula. And you're seeing a mosaic of infrared images about 340 light years across here. Next slide. I want to treat you to images that just came last week. These just came in. You may remember that the Hubble took a set of pictures which they called the pillars of creation. Again, regions of dust and gas where new stars are forming. Here now are two infrared pictures both of them taken with the James Webb Space Telescope, revealing far more detail than the Hubble was able to show us, revealing more depth. This one is the kind of infrared that's closer to light. Here, this is the kind of infrared on the right, where the stars are not even visible anymore. We just see the details of the dust. And look at how sculpted and complex this pillar is. These pillars are light years tall, and within them, new stars and planets are being born right now. Okay, let's see the next slide. Again, I want to remind you that stars go through stages. I've shown you the birth stage. Now let's look at old age, time dear to many of us. The next slide shows you that old stars often shed their outermost layers before they die. This is a Hubble image of such a star, which has let go of its outer material, and that has moved away, forming this glowing shell of cosmic debris around the star that gave birth to the shell. This is called the Southern Ring Nebula, and it's already beautiful with the Hubble. But the next slide shows you the same nebula with the James Webb Space Telescope. Look at how much more detail we can make out. There were many more layers released than we ever dreamed of with the visible light images, but with the heat rays, we can see a far greater complexity in the released material. And we also see that although sometimes the star in the middle looks single, in reality, when we look at infrared, it's a double star system. There are two stars waltzing around each other, creating a much more complex system, because as the dying star lets go of its outer material, it's constantly being wobbled by its companion star. And so we see things not quite symmetrically because there's a wobble in the double star system. We didn't see that until we saw infrared. All right, well, let's continue. I just have a few more minutes. Here you see the double star system, and we just want to point out that behind this object, we're seeing distant galaxies in the infrared. We're seeing old galaxies, even on this picture, focusing on a single dying star. The next slide. Now I want to take you to the realm of the galaxies for a couple of images. Next slide shows you a beautiful spiral galaxy, very similar to the Milky Way in which we live. It's about 32 million light years away, seen here with the Hubble. Very lovely spiral. All the light you see here is millions and billions of stars blending their light together. You can see dust woven throughout this beautiful spiral structure. Now let's see it with the James Webb Space Telescope. Wow. This could be modern art in the San Jose Art Museum, right? Look at the complexity of the dust. In this picture, the stars are not so visible. Only cool, freshly born stars are visible as red dots. But the details of the raw material in the galaxy also distributed in this lovely spiral pattern, the same spiral we see in tropical storms, by the way, same mathematical structure. You see it much better with the James Webb Space Telescope. What a lovely image. The next slide then shows us one of my favorites. It's called Stephan's Quintet of Galaxies. There are actually 4 galaxies that are part of a group, these 4. This one just happens to lie in the same part of the sky. These 4 are about 300 million light years away. And you can see that these 2 galaxies, for example, are interacting. They're actually exchanging stars in an intimate embrace right here in the middle. Let's now look at this amazing picture with the James Webb Space Telescope. So much more detail, so much more material visible in infrared. Here, for example, we see a whole region where shock waves are compressing and heating the gas, making new stars. We see evidence of a huge black hole in the middle here. We see that this galaxy has thrown out an entire tail because it's interacting with its neighbors, and a whole tail of stars has gotten loose over here. We see very clearly how much material there is around the interacting core of these two galaxies. Just remarkable detail. And then beyond them, again, you see little red dots, galaxies much further away, shining with their heat rays, visible in these pictures and not visible in other pictures we have of the neighborhood. Next slide. I just want to show you again the first image that was taken with the James Webb Space Telescope. Einstein proposed that gravity can actually warp space and act like a funhouse lens or mirror. And I just want to point out that many of the galaxies here look like they're stretched into a really kind of circle pattern. And that's the warping that Einstein proposed in 1916. It's called gravitational lensing. The gravity of a group of galaxies behind here is twisting the light into these curved shapes. So had Einstein been able to see this James Webb Telescope picture, he would have been smiling like he is over here. The next slide shows you this in a little more detail. And here you can see arcs from the same galaxy drawn out by the lensing effect of gravity. And then here we point out that one little dot has actually been measured, and we see it as it was 13 billion years ago. That's pretty close to the Big Bang. We think the Big Bang happened about 14 billion years ago. So here we are seeing light from such an ancient structure that we're getting pretty close to the creation event itself. And one of the things we hope to do with the James Webb is to see galaxies as close to the Big Bang when they were first forming as is humanly possible. The next slide shows you the last image from the Webb I want to show you. Again, here's an image with nothing but galaxies. Galaxies everywhere you look. Every dot is a structure of millions or billions of stars. We're going to be exploring each of these galaxies in as much detail as these images permit. We're going to make measurements of how the galaxies are distributed. We just began this year. And the next slide gives one reaction to the incredible complexity of the universe I've shown you. I think quite rightly, this makes me feel almost as insignificant as the American political system does. We'll see what happens next Tuesday. But I don't want to leave you with that thought. I'd like to show you the next slide, which is that with the James Webb Space Telescope, astronomy really is looking up. We are looking at things we've never seen before. We're entering a wonderful new world, a new era of astronomy. I hope I've been able to give you a little taste and a little welcome to it. We look forward to many other discoveries, which perhaps I'll share with you in future talks to the San Jose Rotary Club. But for now, let me thank you for listening and open things up for questions.
So Professor Fraknoi, Sal Pizarro here. I wish we had time for questions. I think maybe we have time for one. And I see Ed standing, so.
Because I have an important one.
Okay.
So, Dr. Fraknoi, the one thing you didn't show us, dark matter. Is the James Webb going to help us find dark matter?
Well, there were so many things I didn't show you. I don't know that you can say there's one thing, but I appreciate the question. Let me, before I answer the question, since we don't have a lot of time, let me just mention that there is an astronomical event coming up next Tuesday. There will be a total eclipse of the moon visible all over North America next Tuesday early in the morning, and it's before Election Day. I don't know what the conspiracy theorists are going to make of the fact that there's a cosmic cover-up happening the morning of Election Day, but the Earth's shadow will hide the full moon. And if you're tossing and turning on Tuesday morning because you're worried about the election, you get up around 1 or 2 a.m., you can just look outside and see the full moon being eclipsed in the middle of the night. But as far as dark matter is concerned, yes, we now know that a great part of the universe is made up of material that doesn't give off any of the rays that I talked about, not visible light, not infrared. So we've given it this name, dark matter, which explains nothing. And there are many experiments going on to detect dark matter, but not with the James Webb Space Telescope, not directly at least. Those have to be done with physics laboratories on Earth because we think it's a new form of matter. But stay tuned, like so many things, we're in the midst of discovery as far as dark matter is concerned.
Thank you, Dr. Fraknoi. We certainly hope to have you back again. I'm putting your information up here on the screen for everyone to see. On your behalf, a donation has been made to the San Jose Jazz Aid Fund to help keep our musicians working here in San Jose. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to encourage you. I know we had a rushed meeting. If after, as you leave, if you want to come up and take a look at the maquette and the books and our renewed agreement with the Mexico City Club, I'd really encourage you to do that. Next week, as has been mentioned, we do have an election. So we will be seeing Larry Gersten to talk about what happened the night before. So keep the good times rolling, and we'll see you then.